Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the monastery, the open bar of the internet, the world's greatest shit show, and the place where we, the good brothers and sisters of this most holy of temples, seek enlightenment through the drunkest, craziest, and most batshit ways possible. I am your one and only gaming monk, better known as Mildra, and with me is a returning good brother to the temple, previously responsible for Dawnfall, and now coming back with another diceless affair with Durandal, a Mythics Chivalry RPG, which we'll be getting into. The one and only Rui Anselmo of Seven Sagas. How you doing today, man?
Hey man, thank you for having me. Doing nice. What about you?
I am doing well. It is a nice, bright and early affair. Today it's one of the rare mornings where I'm not hearing trains.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it's been good. I was a bit surprised. I will disclose the fact that I did back the Durandal game found when that dropped. According to that, I was the first one who backed.
Oh, it was you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I've backed things early in the past. I just didn't think I'd be that early. I've never been the first.
I was surprised as well. I didn't know it was you. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. So now, with that said, I've kept a bit of an eye on things like the WordPress since Dawnfall had dropped, and correct me if I'm wrong, and maybe this is what led to the creation of Durandal, but there were several posts that were all about experimenting with the Dawnfall system in other genres. Is that what led to the eventual creation of Durandal, or was Durandal something that you had planned from the beginning?
No, I didn't. One of my plans with Seven Sagas is to have a kind of micro settings and try to see if the system can accommodate those settings. And surprisingly, some are, well, or perhaps not surprisingly, but some fare much better than others. I don't think that the diceless system that I have nowadays can handle, let's say, superheroes. But I think it can handle drama at the level of Dawnfall and Durandal, which is about people like, not exactly like you and me, because the knights in Durandal are paladins, are mythic figures way above us. But the drama is there, so I think the system handles that very well. And the story of Durandal as a game started just this year. It was not something that I had planned. It was something that was on my mind to perhaps do something fantasy related, but not this. No, but I'm very happy with the end result as the game is coming, and I'm very happy to have other people working with me, which is something that I didn't have with Dawnfall, and which is another plan that was a plan that I had from the beginning to expand the team, stop being a one-man team and starting to have other people working. And this game benefits from that. Sorry, I'm getting all mixed up. It benefits from having people and having the system, the diceless system. And I've learned a lot in this past year, not just by doing those micro settings, because I could see where I could go and could not go, and I came to a realization that playing dice and playing diceless, well, at least in my system, when you use the die to get a random number, all the die rolls have the same emotional weight.
Mm-hmm.
While in my system, when you try to do something and you have to put the effort into it, I'm referring to the rules. That decision has weight, so you have to consider how much you want to invest from yourself, from your character, into the success of that action, which is something that I learned from this past year and invested in Durandal,
Mm-hmm.
and it turned out very, very nice. Yeah, very happy with it.
Now, Durandal styles itself as mythic chivalry, and there's been a lot of within the core book. Not the core book, the quick start. There's a lot of nods to King Charlemagne, and I'm curious what made you go with this particular brand of mythic chivalry, and what some of the inspirations were.
In the tradition of literature in Europe, there are three main branches called the Matters, and the Matter of England covers the Celtic mythology and the King Arthur Pendragon, and the Matter of France covers Charlemagne, and then lastly there is the Matter of Rome, which covers all the classic mythology from Rome and Greece. And they all intermingle amongst themselves. So let's say Morgana Le Fay and Merlin appear in the myths of Charlemagne, but also Roland, one of the paladins of Charlemagne, appears in the Matter of Rome, where he gets a chariot and flies to the moon and does all of crazy stuff. And the thing with Charlemagne, the emperor, is that he is the father of Europe as we know it. He's also the father of the chivalry, the values of chivalry that you see in movies and TV and the books. They all come from Charlemagne in his 12 peers. And in the story of Roland, the guy with the horn on the cover of Durandal, he is an actual historical figure. He was a duke of Charlemagne, of the Emperor King, and at the time when Charlemagne was invaded Spain. Spain at the time was Arab, and he invaded Spain to try and pillage and plunder, and he failed. So when he was getting back to France, well, not France at the time, but the Carolingian Empire, he raided a couple of Basque villages and towns and cities. So the Basques were obviously not happy about it, and they ambushed the back of Charlemagne's army, where Roland was leading. So he was killed there. And jump forward a couple of centuries to the 12th century, when you have the Crusades in Europe, and you needed a kind of propaganda to motivate the people to go fight the Arabs thousands of miles away. And so the Song of Roland, one of the epic poems where I base my game, Roland is there, but Roland is a paladin, is more than mortal, and he has a magic sword, Durandal, which is unbreakable, and he's surrounded by the Arabs, and his peers tell him to blow his horn and call back the army, the Charlemagne, the main army. But he never wants to do that. He sees himself and his peers as the pinnacle of chivalry, how do you say it, of the values of the knights of the day. And he says, no, God is in our side, so we will prevail. But it happens that they didn't.
Yeah.
And he died blowing his horn. When he blew his horn, his ears popped and it bled from his ears, and it's such a dramatic moment that I had to use it. So that's the main inspiration for Durandal. It's those ideals of chivalry, the basics of Europe, of your knights, and it's so many stuff to and so many stuff and so many good things to learn from that I really had to do it. And the thing is, when you are playing, I also changed my style of game mastering and demonstrating the game. I use the passions. Well, you remember the mechanics of passions from Dawnfall.
Mm-hmm.
And those are way more appropriate for a game like Durandal than for a game like Dawnfall. Because they really mimic what was happening in the Song of Roland and the Matter of France, the main core of European literature, where you have the knights that are always struggling inside with their emotions of having to uphold the chivalric values and their own personal interests. And I think that's a really good marriage of the epic poem and historical sense and the game. I think it turned out very good.
Yeah, yeah, I can certainly get that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I will note as a bit of a side thing, since we are talking about the things like the matters, especially like the matter of France. I am curious if you had listened to the concept albums that Christopher Lee had done late in his life regarding King Charlemagne.
Oh yes, yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah, I did listen to it. Yes, there's one song in particular where he goes to very gruesome details about how King Charlemagne murders the Saxons.
Yeah, the bloody verdict of Verdun, which
yeah,
that was certainly an interesting beast. But
it was.
Now, given the fact that this is using the same the same general bidding system, and going from a post-apocalyptic affair to this sort of mythology approach, were there any things in the core system that you felt had to be expanded or just weren't compatible?
Well, the system as it is now, it's a bit different from it was. Not too much, because it's still the same bidding system, the same blind bidding system that you had. But while playing Dawnfall with a couple of friends, I noticed. Well, they made me notice it, that there were some things missing, because the Dawnfall system, for me, it's a perfect system, or at least as perfect as I could do it back in the day. The guys I play with, they are way more used to more traditional systems. I mean, with attributes and skills and stuff, and so that made me realize that perhaps something were actually missing, and that Durandal could benefit from an expanded system. I never wanted to have a really complicated system. I'm still the same guy from last year that wanted simple things. I can't remember things, so I need to have a system as simple as I can remember it. And while I was writing Durandal and the system, I felt this is way bigger than the other one was, and the system was really expanded, not only mechanically but also in the way that you use it. I'll give you an example that wasn't in the Dawnfall system, not the main system, but what you have around it, the meat in the bones. Is that something that I've learned quite recently while listening to a podcast, the Red Moon guys that are doing the Warhammer podcast. Have you listened to them?
Um, I think I may have, but it may have gotten lost in the shuffle. So,
Ah, okay, nice. It's a more of a theatrical instead of an actual play thing, but they always have something that I really find quite cool, which is instead of just asking what do you do, they ask how do you feel about this.
mhm,
And I started to put that into the game, and a couple of players said you have to get some mechanics around it because that helps with the immersion.
mhm,
You know, you look at the character sheet, and there are, as there was with Dawnfall, you have your attribute and your skills and your passions, and I think that helps you visualize not only what your character can do, but also what your character wants.
yeah,
But when I ask, how do you feel about this? It's quite different because you have to think like someone else,
mhm,
and you really get into the flow of it. And if I, as a game master, reward the player, I don't know, with a bonus to that action, they feel like the player feel like he's winning,
mhm,
and you're always getting something good out of it. Not only the experience, but a mechanical bonus. And it really helps because it doesn't matter if you are a good guy or playing a good guy or playing a bad guy, because you can also play a bad guy, but you are always getting mechanical benefits out of it. It's very good and very good, very cool. Um, However, not everyone likes this, so it's not a system for everyone,
mhm.
but it's there if you want to use it. So that's something that it's a difference between Dawnfall and Durandal.
Yeah.
Not only. Mhm, mhm.
And I did notice one of the major differences is doing an attribute and skill relationship, whereas
Yeah.
Dawnfall was straight one giant skill, and I actually think there's let. I'd have to do a number count, but I think that there's less skills in Da- in Dawnfall, not Dawnfall, but in Durandal. Um,
Perhaps. Yeah. I
I'd
didn't count them, so I have no idea.
yeah, I'd have to check because I think there's 21 skills, and of course three
Hmm.
attributes, and uh, actually there's a lot more than 21 skills in
Okay.
Dawnfall. But
Yeah.
the other thing I couldn't help but note is things like the distinctions, as well
Hmm.
as having a full-on archetype system, because you in Dawnfall you had the different factions akin to the different
Hmm.
factions you would see in, say, Stalker or Fallout. But with
Hmm.
this one, you certainly have the culture, but you also have the different archetypes as well as social classes. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
so I'm guessing that's one of the major things you added when it came to the character creation process, is that there's more individual steps when it comes to those packages.
Yeah, because one of the things I wanted to do was to mimic what was happening in the Song of Roland, the epic poem. That you, if you look at the core game of Durandal, and that the Song of Roland, the epic poem, you can immediately identify what archetypes I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So there's your warrior priest, there's your Arab fighter, there's your guardian, there's your paladin, there's your knight. And those are all in the Song of Roland. And I wanted to do that. In Dawnfall, it's not that I was making mistakes, I certainly did, but I was learning a lot when I was making Dawnfall. I tried to have something more freeform, and I'm not quite sure if I got it right or not. But I think in that regard, with the archetypes and the social classes, that this is a much more, um, I don't know if precise or correct are the right terms to use, but I think, yes, the Durandal is a superior game to Dawnfall in that regard, I think.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something which are the distinctions that I didn't have in Dawnfall, that I really felt that could help players visualize their character. If you have something on a character sheet that says you have this bonus because you are this, it helps them visualize and what they can do. Last week I did a playtest at a local convention, and a couple of players were veterans, but three of them, the other three were newbies. That it was really their very first game, their very first role-playing game, and they were really right into it just by looking at the character sheet, which is something that I was really trying to do. And again, I'm not sure I got that with a Dawnfall game, which is a shame, really, because I really like the game as well.
Which is understandable, but the game development process is a gradual thing.
It is.
I've talked about some of the game projects I've done in the past, which no one will ever see because they in hindsight weren't all that great, but they were an essential part of the learning experience and learning what to do and what not to do in developing that style. Now, one of the other additions is perks, and you have them separated into high perks and low perks. And given that that's a wide net and that house ruling is inevitable, what would you say is the dividing line between what would be considered a high perk and what would be considered a low perk?
You have to also consider that perks are divided in mechanical and narrative. A mechanical perk gives you a bonus, a flat bonus, a +1 if it's a low perk, or a +2 if it's a high perk. While a narrative bonus gives you access to stuff. For example, you have minor noble perk, I think that's called, which makes you immediately your status is higher than everyone else at the table if you have that perk. You might be related to Charlemagne inclusively. So that's something. So mechanical perk gives you a mechanical bonus, either a +1 or a +2. That's really it. That's just it. There's nothing else. That's part of the keep it simple that I was talking about earlier. And the narrative perk is where things start to get start to cover a lot more ground. Okay, because I don't know, noble is one of them, and if you want your priest character to perform miracles, you have to have the perk for that. And if you want your sorcerer character to cast spells, you have to have a perk for that as well. And let me just say, I don't know if you wanted to talk about this or not, but the system for miracles and sorcery is different from what it is in the quick start edition. Because what is in the quick start edition is too, it's what I feel right now, it's too closely related to a fantasy system than what I have right now. What will be in the core game when it's released, it will be much more, I feel, much more close to what you see in the Song of Roland and in the Matter of France, with miracles happening and the Arab sorcerer casting illusions and stuff. It's much more closer to the system that I have right now than the system I had on the quick start.
I can certainly get that, and And when it comes to sorcery and miracles, that was something that I think was only done by. In fact, let me double check. The only the only one that had it was one of the pre-gens within the quick
Yeah.
start.
Zara. Zara had sorcery. Yep.
Yeah. Now, obviously, passions they were a big deal in Dawnfall, and I'd say they're an even bigger deal here.
Yep.
But
they are.
Given that the passions are going to take different forms, even if it is gaining an advantage when you do a certain thing, that is still a wide net. And within the full book, I'm curious if you plan on adding in examples or guidance as far as what would be too specific or too broad of an instance for individual passions.
Okay, when you are generating your character, you have a couple of suggestions for passions that come from both your cultural backgrounds. So a Frankish character would have different passions from, say, a Dane or a Saxon character. And those are suggestions. You don't have to take them if you want to. But if you do take them, then you will be much closer to what is represented in the Matter of France and the Song of Roland. But I also want players to be able to get their own passions going. So there are some guidelines in what you can and can't do. Much more on what you can do than what you can't do. I don't want to stop people from doing anything that they want to do. But there are guidelines, yes. So what's there are just examples.
Yeah.
You can take whatever you want.
Yeah, and obviously I'm not trying. I would never want to restrict people on that, but at the same time, I will always argue that it's important to give people guidance instead of doing what a fair few narrative games do and just throw people into the middle of the pool and say swim, damn it.
Yeah, right. Well, if you want to just go look at the list and pick one that resonates with you, you can. Of course you can. But if in the middle of the game when you have your eureka moment when you say this passion no longer applies to what I want to do, and I think that another thing would be more appropriate to my character, then you are free to go. Let's say that you have a duty to a noble, to a Frankish noble, and you find out that Frankish noble is a traitor to the Carolingian Empire, and you can go with it and still get your rewards, your XP, for example, or you can just say, no, this doesn't make sense for my character, so I just get rid of this passion and get another one. You can go wild if you want to.
Yeah.
There were characters in playtest sessions that were really into it. Like, I'm assuming that you read the quick start, the adventure in the quick start.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, you did. So I don't want to spoil people that might want to play it, but you just let me say that you have to get the Durandal sword that has been lost. And one of the players, while they were in the middle of the game, one of them said, no, I'm going to betray you guys, I'm going to get another passion, and I'm going to keep Durandal for myself. You can do it. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. It was such an awesome moment to see in play. Everyone was, their mouths were open, and it was very, very cool. And of course, you could do it with any other system. But with the passion systems that I have, the character was mechanically rewarded for it. And I think the game shines because of it as well.
Yeah, I can.
Yeah.
I can certainly get that.
Hmm.
Now, with that in mind, I think one of the other avenues that is interesting that you want to put in on this is mass combat.
Hmm.
I think that was something that was experimented with. I think I saw it once on the on a WordPress article, but
Hmm.
it but I do not think it was in Dawnfall. I think this is something technically new for the system for Durandal. Was mass
Yes.
combat something that you wanted to get in there, like from the word go when you started this, or was it something that developed as you were developing the system?
No, I wanted it from the start. I wanted players to be at the head of armies if the situation arose. So I mean, if you have someone that takes the minor noble perk, it's assumed that you would have a small retinue of guards and of knights that followed you around.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have, I don't know, 20, 30, 50 people around you, depending on you, I mean, you have to use them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have to go fight some Saxons or go fight some Danes or go fight some Arabs if you want to. And the system, you were right, it was not in a Dawnfall system because the influences are different as well. I'm not that an expert on post-apocalyptic settings, but I don't recall ever seeing mass combat on a movie or a series.
Mad
Uh,
Max, maybe.
you think? Well, probably, yeah. But given the whole range of stuff that I can draw from I mean, people are always fighting in armies in the Song of Roland. I mean, the whole point of Song of Roland is about two armies fighting,
Mm-hmm.
and the Matter of France has that in spades as well. So yes, that was something that I really wanted to do with this game, and I think it came out pretty good as well. You can go with a strategic side of things and lead army, and with your actions position the army where you want to, or you can take the side of or you could take the role of the hero and try to change the battle from a more focused point of view, and that works like a charm as well. Players can, I mean, in one of the play sessions that I had, they were fighting, two armies fighting, and one of them decided to challenge the leader of the other army to a personal duel, and he won. And because he won, the battle changed, and it was so good to see as well. When you have a plan and the plan works, and it's such a cool thing to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get that.
Mhm.
And with that with that in mind, when it going further into mass combat, you do have an example of a small skirmish. I'm guessing in the full book you'll have examples for smaller, even much larger skirmishes and how they might be set up.
Yeah. Yeah, you do. That was something that I really struggled with because I'm not a scholar, I'm not an historian, I'm just an adept. But as far as I could find, no one is quite certain how large were the armies back in the days, because everybody lies. So the historian at the time would write that Charlemagne's empire could field 50,000 men, when in reality they would be, I don't know, 10 or 5,000. And that was something that I really struggled with. But because I wanted to get something that was, while um, a fantasy of sorts, but I'm also heavily inspired by real world events. So I wanted to give the players tools to emulate battles as they would happen back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And same thing with. I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of myself, but one of the comments that I had about the art was that the armor was not was anachronic, and it felt way like a general fantasy game than a real historic game. And I went, well, this is not a real historic game, so I can put whatever I want to.
Yeah, I've seen that particular thing as somebody who's been a big fan of Legend of the Five Rings for most of my life,
Mhm.
and every
Okay.
so often I have to hear, it's not doing a realistic depiction of samurai or a realistic depiction of historical Japan, and I've always said the same
Yeah,
thing back. This isn't historical Japan. This is Rokugan.
exactly so. Yeah, exactly so.
It is certainly
Well,
inspired by those things, but Charlemagne was not a god emperor historically, and in your version of Durandal, he very much is.
yeah, the guy is 200 years old
Yeah.
in the Song of Roland, so he would have to be 200 years old in my game.
Hmm.
And the empire has been going longer than historically
Yeah.
went, and will go for much longer, because it's a metaphor for the Christian values that are forever.
Yeah.
That's something that I discovered while reading about Charlemagne and the matter of France, is that the guy, um, while a real historical figure, but in the matter of France, Charlemagne is a metaphor
Hmm.
for the Christian values. So they would, back in the day, they would last. People thought that they would last forever. And so the Carolingian Empire is like the ultimate, how do you say it, eternal empire,
Hmm.
because it's the kingdom of God on earth. So Charlemagne, as the ultimate representation of God, I think you could say that.
Hmm.
It would have to also be eternal. So the guy is 200 years old in my game, because he was that as well in the matter of France and Song of Roland. Yeah,
Hmm.
which is to say, yeah, this is my game. I can put whatever I want. I'm so sorry. I'm getting ahead of
Yeah.
myself. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I can certainly get that. Now,
Mhm.
with that in mind, when it comes to the archetype setup, just as that part of
Okay.
character creation, since that's a new thing,
Yeah.
what would your choice of archetype determine, like your starting perks and gear?
I'm sorry. Are you asking me if your starting perks and gear come from the archetypes? Is that it?
Yeah, potentially. I'm not saying every say knight starts with the same perks, but the potential perks, would those come from
Oh,
your choice
okay.
of archetype?
Yeah, exactly so. Yeah. So you have, um, while the passions are examples and suggestions that you can take, the perks that you can take at character creation all come from cultural background, class, and archetype.
Hmm.
So you can pick, if you want a measure, a high perk, you can pick just the one that is presented to you. And the same thing if you want a lower perk, you can pick two, but only from cultural background and class and archetype. And the equipment comes from your archetype as well. And I don't have, I don't know if you were asking me that as well, but I don't have a system to buy stuff. Uh, you don't actually buy stuff.
Hmm.
You negotiate and you trade, and if you are a noble, you ask for. unless it's a really expensive stuff. Like you don't ask for a sword because no one would carry a sword unless the sword was theirs. Um, so that's it. That's what I wanted to do. You get your starting equipment from your archetype, and your perks you get from cultural backgrounds, class, and archetype. And you don't buy equipment. You have that, and you might gain something else during play or lose something during play, but you don't actually buy stuff. You can be rewarded for valor and heroic actions. For example, you could get the minor noble perk for extremely heroic actions during combat, as one would in the Charlemagne age, where nobles were rewarded with lands and titles. So, yeah, that's it. I think that was the same thing when in Dawnfall, that you actually didn't buy equipment, but you had a system for acquiring stuff.
Yeah, you had a barter set up because, well, it would be a bit odd to have standardized money in
Exactly.
in a post-apocalypse.
Exactly so, yeah. Well, so it's the same thing here. It's not that you wouldn't have a list of stuff with prices to spend money on, but I really don't want to have that in my games. It's really much more complicated than I wanted it to be, and I don't want to bog players with how many arrows they have, or if they have the shoes to go on this voyage or not. No, if it's supposed to, if you are supposed to have it, then you have it, and if you don't have it, you just, well, you have to get lucky and perhaps get it in during the adventure.
Yeah, and you kind of sidestep that issue because of the fact that this is not it's not meant to be a simulationist kind of game. You referred to it as mythic chivalry. You do, with a lot of the mythological characters throughout various regions across the world, you don't see them wonder if they have enough 5-foot rope or enough torches.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's it. No one asks Roland during the battle if he has the right equipment to fight the Arabs. So that's what I wanted to do as well.
And in a lot of those cases, I refer to the approach that's taken with say James Bond in the sense that he's getting a set of equipment and right at the start that's certainly going to be unusual, but is told to make the best out of it.
Yeah, and yeah, that's it.
Of course, anybody who's seen a Bond movie knows that stuff's not coming back. At least not in one. Not in one piece. So Q had something to complain about later on.
Yeah. That's it. So yes, during game you have that equipment. If you want more, then roleplay it, which is I think. I'm not judging myself to be superior to others, but for me, role-playing is about drama and about role-playing, not about how many gold coins you have. So yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's an excellent point. That's an excellent point you made with the James Bond example.
I use that as, I know it might be odd to use that for a chivalry RPG, but I use that to make to make a very easy point because everybody has seen a Bond movie at least once in their life.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's not at all disproportionate because James Bond is also above everyone else. I mean, no one can do what he does and go back to gone back home to his wife and kids. So yeah,
you know, and in fact, if I had to use a more traditional example, consider how it. And I know I'm cheating by using fantasy with this, but consider how with Fellowship of the Ring, the main equipment that that Baggins has is just a chain shirt made of mithril and sting.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
have their benefits, but it's not like you're getting anything more than that
Hmm.
after the fact. You just have to make the
Yeah,
most of it
exactly.
with all the stuff that's going to get thrown at you, up
Hmm.
to and including the
Yeah,
kitchen
exactly.
sink.
Exactly. Well, that's a very good example as well because if you model the game and if you compare the game to a movie, in a movie you don't see people buying stuff. They have their equipment handed to them in the beginning. Everything else they get through acting.
Hmm. And
And that,
I liken that. I've um I've been talking quite a bit about the shifting effect that happened over the years when it came to tabletop RPGs as they
Mhm,
became less and the wargaming DNA became less and less prominent
mhm,
as TTRPGs just started to establish their own identity. But
mhm,
some of the things like the monetary thing we've referred to earlier, those could be
mhm.
considered vestiges of that
Okay.
wargaming mindset. Because when building
Yeah.
an army in a war game, you have to consider all the point values, and when doing a campaign, you have to consider how you're going to handle attrition.
Mhm, mhm.
But
Um, yeah, go ahead.
TTRPGs don't have to only have to worry about that if that's actually relevant to the kind of
Mhm.
game being played.
Yeah, I don't remember if we talked about it last time I was on your interview, but it's something that it's always on my mind. Is that TTRPGs come from wargaming, in that you have a precise count of how many arrows, of how many gold coins, how many paces you can go in a turn. And my train of thought for my games is, what if TTRPGs came from literature instead of wargaming? Then perhaps you wouldn't have this precise exercise of bookkeeping your equipment.
Well, we have we have a similar case in point. Um,
Oh,
I've I've talked on some of the past shows. I've talked about the fascinating tabletop scene in Japan,
mhm.
and one of the things over there is that it didn't start from wargaming.
Okay.
The TTRPG scene in Japan came out of the computer gaming scene.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah, and as a result, there is a significantly different approach because the war. I'm not saying there's no wargaming scene in Japan. It just
Hmm.
wasn't the starting point. It was one of the
Hmm.
earliest homegrown TTRPGs in Japan was an adaptation of the Wizardry video game.
Oh,
Wizardry was
okay.
really big in Japan.
Yeah, okay. I didn't know about that. It's
Well,
very
not
good. Don't-
it, the point
Now,
is
now I do.
that exact kind of thing that you're talking about. We have seen that in
Yeah.
practice, uh,
Oh, awesome.
and
Okay.
I'd say we more or less saw it once more narrative games started to crop up in the '90s, especially during that brief time when TSR was out of the picture. Um,
Hmm.
this is where you get the rise of companies like White Wolf and
Yeah.
Ars Magica, for instance, even though
Hmm.
when that was still under White Wolf, described itself as a passion play kind of game,
Hmm.
uh, and it had a gentleman's understanding that you're going to be playing as multiple characters in service of that passion play
Yeah.
motif.
Okay. Isn't that the? I'm sorry if I'm not getting you correctly, but isn't that the same with that space opera game? What's it called? I think it was from Stuart Wick as well. Uh, can't remember. I'm so sorry. But the words passion play ring a bell, and it's not only about the White Wolf games, but about other games as well. I think they came from Ars Magica. What's the name of the game? So sorry, I can't remember it. It was a space opera game. Of that, I'm sure.
Oh. Well,
Yeah.
I guarantee it'll come to you after we do the interview. Oh.
Yeah, I'll call you. I'll call you later.
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah. But now currently the crowdfund for Durandal is going. I think you've got that going until early March. What would you be shooting for as far as a release window for the game itself?
Let me just tell you that the game will be on the crowdfunding campaign will be to the end of March. So it will be 2 months. Well, I'm hoping that the game gets funded first and foremost, and if it gets more than that, I will shoot to the moon. I will be quite happy. Yeah, because as with Dawnfall, I'm a relative unknown to the major gaming scene, which is quite difficult to get your games, get your ideas, if no one knows who you are. And if I can get the game to be funded, then I will be quite happy. If not, well, let's see. I might still print it and sell it on drive-through RPG. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, at the time we're recording this, it's just shy of 1/5 of the way there.
Yes, it is.
So I'm optimistic about it. But with that said, I do want to thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come all the way to my temple and enjoy the madness that happens here.
No, thank you very much for having me.
And anytime you see fit to return, the door is always open. As I often say around
thank you very much.
As I often say around here, drinking is not mandatory, but it is encouraged.
Well, thank you very much. Let's have a beer then.
And of course, a sincere thanks goes out to everyone who took the time out of their schedule to come onto the show and enjoy the madness. And there'll be plenty more where that came from, as there always is here, on the open bar of the internet. But until then, on behalf of the good brothers present and not present, my name is Mildra, I am your gaming monk. Stay fucking frosty, everybody!
신기